Good morning, happy Wednesday. The last few days have been very busy. I'd actually meant to take out my camera and say hello, but here we are and it's already Wednesday and this is the first time I have taken it out. But I wanted to, just like usual, kind of take you along and show you what we are up to for the next couple weeks, what skills we're working on. It is March 27th. I know many of you have probably had your spring break sometime throughout March if you're not having it right now. We up in Massachusetts, we have a February vacation, which means then we have an April vacation. So March is a bit of a long month, but it was broken up by parent-teacher conferences and some other things we have going on. So we will finish up this week, and then we have 2 more weeks, and then will be our April vacation. So, and then after that, it feels like it's like the end of the year, even though we have plenty of time left. There's just so many events and activities that I will take you along for. But this week I wanted to share what we're up to, and then also I wanted to give you an update on our curriculum committee. Many of you know we are looking for a new literacy curriculum for next year. So we actually met with 2 different publishers so far. And then last night we had a meeting where we talked about those 2. We talked about pros, cons, strengths, weaknesses, what we liked, what we didn't like. Those are all synonyms for the same thing, to kind of narrow down where we are headed. And then we have 2 more presentations coming up. So let's go into that first. I'll give you a little update there, and then I'll share what we're doing this week. Okay, I wanted to pull it up on my computer. So the first 2 presentations that we saw, and they were last week and the week before, the first one was EL education, and the second one was SAVIS. I think it's called My View. And so I'm gonna share just my general perspectives and what I thought. I told you I have kind of looked into, I've heard a lot about these programs just through friends that are using them, Facebook, things like that, but I really tried to go into each presentation as unbiased as I could and just see what they've got to present, see what updates they're making, things like that. So EL education, my very first impression was, oh dear God, this curriculum, the way it is packaged, it was like this huge manual with like no pictures, just a bunch of words. It looked extremely difficult to navigate, looked extremely wordy. I was just it was overwhelming in a bad way. That was my first impression. Then what happens is we are all split into groups. And so after the presentation, we do like an initial rating, and then we are asked to look at the curriculum. Many of the publishers were able to send us materials, student workbooks, the teacher manual, so we can actually take a look at it. And so that's what we would do. And we were split up into groups. One group would talk about the accessibility of materials. Another group focused on foundational skills, quality of knowledge building, quality of teacher resources, quality of texts, and then the writing portion. So there were 6 different groups. I am in the quality of knowledge building group, so that's really where I kind of honed in on. In general, this is something we talked about at our last meeting. Because we are a K through 6 district, we are a little concerned that maybe we won't find something that meets what we want for foundational skills, as well as what those older grades would want for more like novel study types of activities. They were looking for a lot more student choice and all of that. And personally, in the K through 2 realm, I am looking for a very strong foundational program so they can read those novel studies when they get to 6th grade. So I just focused on the knowledge building for the purpose of this group and everything, but personally, I'm always looking at the foundational skills to see what is included, because that to me seems like a much bigger deal to have to supplement if needed. If it doesn't have a strong program, then I'm gonna supplement an entire phonics program. That sounds huge, as opposed to maybe the upper grades supplementing novel studies, things like that, or doing things that they have previously done. I don't know. I don't want to say this is better than that, whatever. I'm just telling you my concerns as a 1st grade teacher. But for quality of knowledge building, we really found a lack of diversity in topics and perspectives for EL education. For instance, in unit, what was it? I think it was in 1st grade, 2 of the 4 units were like all about birds. So it was a deep dive into one topic, which I understand, but then it was so narrow that they didn't really get to explore other things. There wasn't room for choice. It was kind of interesting. We didn't really love that. There wasn't a clear routine and universally used organizers for like language, vocabulary, and how they're going to go about dissecting all these texts, which we didn't love either. things we did like, they have like a lab that you can do, this big summative project that you can do at the end of each one. But with the time constraint of having to teach the whole block, it sounded like we weren't even going to be adopting the lab part of it. And that was kind of like the best part of the program, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of where we landed. I was very meh about this program, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to look at the other groups they presented yesterday. Overall, it sounded like it was kind of, most people were lukewarm about this one, is how we felt. So let me look up Savas. Okay, so, I should say what people did really enjoy about EL education was the use of real trade books. So like actual books that are in their hands, not an anthology, which is just much more engaging for students and things like that. Which leads me to Savas. The first impression coming from EL, which had this like huge chunky manual that was like so hard to read, truly. And it was hard to even like look through and find what I needed to do. It was really difficult. Then going to Savas and my perspectives, or my view for the K through 5, the user manual was so easy to read. That was a huge pro that people said. I mean, I know that we really need to dive into what it's actually teaching, but I'm just saying first impression, it was like, oh my God, you open it up, you see how the unit's gonna go, you see what books you're going to be reading. It was just so much easier to read. The little think alouds that would pop up for each of the books you're going to be reading, just the accessibility of materials in the teacher, like the teacher materials too, far superior in my opinion. So then we had to dive a little deeper and say, okay, well, what is this program actually teaching, right? So for the quality of knowledge building, we definitely had a lot more pros. We still had plenty of cons, but more pros than EL. For example, we loved that there were way more opportunities to both read and write different genres throughout one unit. It looked like we would learn a topic and then there was a poem that they could read. There was a fiction book, there was a nonfiction book, there was a decodable that aligned, all within, a week or 2 unit or however long the unit was, I don't remember. There was a strong variety of authentic texts and magazines, things like that. This is for the younger grades. The older grades, a big concern, of course, was the fact that they used an anthology and that they didn't have trade books in their hands, which was a big nay, which I fully understand. I also loved they had at the end of this one, I think they call it like week 6 or something, but at the end, they had a project-based inquiry lesson or unit project for students, which actually looked really good. I looked it up. I was very interested in that. It was a nice culminating project to the end of each of our units, which I thought was good. Let's see, we mentioned the daily lesson plans, the easy to use teacher manual. In terms of some cons, people felt they've used Savas before for maybe like Words Their Way, and that it is, the presentation said we have a great technology and great website, but then people felt that when they had used it themselves, they didn't necessarily feel that strongly about it. And to be honest, our biggest concern about my view is that it is repackaged Fountas and Pinnell. It used to be a very strong Fountas and Pinnell program, and they owned that in the presentation. They did very recently, I think it's 2024, redo their foundational skills. I saw many negative comments about Savas in my view, but they all looked to be from like 2020. So I'm interested if any of you have used the foundational skills part, like recently, like this year, are you using it? It's the newer version. That to me is, again, for K through 2, going to be a much bigger concern for my part. I'm trying to look at the foundational skills. It did say there were some clear routines for phonemic awareness and phonics. This wasn't my group, this was other people's groups. Many opportunities for differentiation. It looks like they included morphology, vocabulary for those older students, and it did have word work for upper elementary. The question, like I said, that we are kind of asking ourselves is this program really aligned, or are they just saying they're aligned, or are they getting there but they're not where we want to be yet? So that was kind of our concern for this one. My overall impression and my just guess, and I have no idea, but my guess is that we're really not going to go with either of these. The next 2 presentations that we have, like I said, we debriefed on these 2, kind of talked about it. Definitely people overall seem to like Savas a little more, but that was based on that first impression. And then it's like, okay, let's dive deeper. It's just packaged so much better than EL education was. But then our next 2 presentations are going to be CKLA next week, and then the week after is, what is it? Let me look. Oh, into reading. So we're going to do the same thing where we meet with those publishers. They kind of go over all the pros and cons of their program. They're not going to go over cons, they're just going to go over pros. And they're going to show us what it looks like, send us some materials, and then we will debrief. So I will keep you updated. Like I said, I am interested about EL education too. If you do use it and you love it, let me know. But I'm more interested in people that are using MyView, if you're using the new foundationals program, and kind of how you feel about it. Like I said, I don't think we're gonna go with either, but still would love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Oh, and real quick before I show you what we were up to this week, I did originally, like I said, we were trying to get a curriculum that kind of covers foundational skills, reading, writing, covers the whole thing. And it's been tricky because it's K through 6. So a downside was having to do a program like Wit and Wisdom that doesn't have a foundationals program, because we would have to then adopt also a new foundational skills program, which is just a lot. And so originally it was like, no, we're going to try to look for an all-in-one. As this kind of continues and we hear, what 4 through 6 really wants, and then K through 2 is kind of like, well, this is what we really want. This is what I would be okay with if it didn't have, those novel studies. I would obviously be okay with that if it had strong foundational program, and 4 through 6 might not feel that way, understandably. So now it feels like we might listen to Wit and Wisdom, also do a publisher meeting. And then I'm kind of thinking it now, instead of a negative, it actually could be a pro, that we pick something that just has the other strands of literacy, and then K through 2 can really focus and hone in on a good foundationals program that we can work on. So what I originally thought was a con might end up being a pro. But yeah, like I said, I will continue to update you with our process and see where we're at. All right, let's dive into the slides and see what we are up to this week so I can share that with you. First, I did introduce, since we only have like 2.5 more weeks, I introduced a new positive behavior incentive for the whole class, similar to the one I did back in February. So let me show you that. Instead of can we fill our heart, it's can we be rock star students. I just happen to find myself saying all the time, like, oh, what a rock star walker in the hallway. So I just did a little rock star here. And the 3 things we are working on, we are still definitely working on raising our hands. That is something I think we'll work on all year. We're working on working quietly and staying on task. We've been doing a lot more partner work and a lot more independent work as the year has gone on. And so sometimes we can get a little silly in those areas. So that is what we are looking for in order for their name to be called, and they can fill in a circle. And just like in February, everyone can fill in a circle. They can fill it in more than once, but in order to earn our class prize, we need to make sure everyone in our class has earned a circle in that star. All right, let's look at the slides. We have our good morning, lunch choices, morning meeting. We have our morning message. Today we were actually going to start our subtraction from 2-digit numbers. We were going to subtract ones first. But yesterday we had math stations, and really I felt like my students needed a little bit more practice. So we're gonna do another day of math stations, which I'll show you. And then here, let's see, we've been working with 2-digit numbers. Can you give me an example of a 2-digit number? And then I want them to tell me the value of the underlined digit in each of the numbers below. Would you rather Wednesday? Would you rather be a detective or an astronaut? Would you rather have a pet unicorn or a best friend that's a fairy? Calendar, Haggerty. For phonics, we are in Foundations Unit 9. I find this to be a little interesting of a unit because we are teaching them vowel teams, but also we're teaching them closed syllables. So, a vowel team is not a closed syllable, and it's a little funky for me, but it's fine. So we've already done AY and AI and these 3 long E vowel teams. Today we are going to introduce, this also drives me crazy, they call it a vowel team. It's a diphthong. I get it, but it's still, it's semantics, it's fine. But I've always introduced diphthongs as their own kind of category, but we're gonna go into this. These are my introduction to phonics skills. I have a whole group teaching slides for all of these. So this is what we've been doing to introduce our vowel teams, as well as this new diphthong that we will learn today. It starts with what sounds. So we start with the phonemic awareness. The boy destroyed his toys in the soil. And then we have oyster, soil, destroy, boil. And they'll listen for that oi sound that they're hearing. After we do the sound, then I teach them how to make the sound. And the sound is oi, and I'm going to show them on the next slide that we can make it 2 different ways. But here, this is always the sound. Some people have had questions because I'll put the NG. I need to actually just change it to the actual symbol that's like the N and J for the that nasalized kind of N sound. But anyway, this is always the sound, oi. It's not that it's OY. And so I actually need to put brackets here. That's what I'll do to change it, just to clarify for some of the teachers that are using this. And then I show how our mouth actually changes when we make oi, and I'll look for students to show me how they can do that. And then we always just include a picture like coin. This is where we have our explicit teaching. A diphthong is a vowel sound that makes your mouth glide from one position to another as you say it. We're going to learn 2 ways to make the diphthong oi. So 2 ways to spell it. We have OI and OY. And then if there's any kind of generalizations, I pointed out here. So this spelling usually comes in the middle of a word, but it can also come at the beginning. And this spelling usually comes at the end of a word. And then I asked for students to think of words that they know that have oi in it. Any word that they come up with that is spelled with OI or OY, I write over here. If for some reason they come up with something else or they're not quite, maybe it doesn't quite have the oi sound, I will write it on the side and kind of explain why it might be spelled that way or whatever it is. And then at the end, I just have students come up and highlight words that have that oi sound, and they try to read it for the class. So it's some good little practice here. Then I just show them the foundations cards, the images that we will have, OY, boy, oi, OI, coin, oi. And those will get added to the back. I did print another category that says diphthongs because I'm going to teach them what that is anyway. And I'm going to separate it. I don't know if that's the best choice, but that's what I'm going to do because that is what I'm used to. And then we go, so we learn all those vowel teams, a brand new diphthong, and then it's kind of like when we're building and writing, students don't need to be able to spell them yet. For foundations, they just need to be able to read them. So when we get back to our building part, now we're going back to closed syllables. So I will do a little quick review on closed syllables. We will take out our magnet boards and do some word chaining and building here. And then if we have time, we'll do some dictation. After snack and recess, we are into poetry. So we started our poetry unit a little bit early. Like I said, we have 2 weeks in April next week, but they are busy. We have a spring concert and some other things. So we started introducing poetry this week. So we're just kind of listening for rhymes and rhythm right now. And this is just a fun little unit. And then actually next week in writing, we're gonna go into writing poetry as well. We have been reviewing contractions. Or not reviewing, I should say, introducing contractions, and today we are going to be reviewing them. And then we go into our reading centers, which are the ones I have been using for quite a few weeks now. I think we'll stick with this for the end of the year. For WIN this week, we always have our 4 stations here. If you've been following along, you know how I do my WIN time, but we have students reviewing AI and AY, EE and EA, and then for addition, they are doing multiples of 10. So we're getting into some tricky stuff. I love this time of year, but it is a little nerve-wracking for them. For independent writing, they're listening to The Crayon Man because this weekend, it was either this weekend or the past weekend, was National Crayon Day. So they're listening to The Crayon Man who invented the crayons, and then they get to make their own crayon creation and write a sentence about what they created. These are always, all these ones here, if they're not writing in their journal, if they have these pages, it's from my seasonal writing centers or writing prompts. For math, we are reviewing 10 more, 10 less cover up. So they have the game down here in the math bin that they play. They just spin the spinner, and then instead of covering up that number, they have to pick 10 more or 10 less to cover up in the grid. And this is from my place value unit. And then of course, collaborative reading. After lunch and recess, we are going right into math. Math, again, our number talks have been similar the past couple times. We will have some place value cubes. They're either adding or subtracting from it. We've had some 3-digit numbers, and now we are going to also try some 3 addend problems with a missing addend. So we are getting trickier by the day. And then here I obviously have a bunch blocked out, but we are going to do our centers like I said earlier. We did rotations yesterday. Just regrouping is so difficult, I wanted to give one more day before we dive into subtraction. So one group will meet with me, one group will meet with my other teacher who is the math interventionist who's in here during this time. One group will do IXL, and there's another game that students will play with their partner. Our special is music. For writing, I think I've mentioned this before, but our writing warm-up for the past week or so has been turning this sentence into a super sentence, and then I try to remind students to use those super sentences when they are doing their writing. And then we finished up our how-to writing. So yesterday we published our books. I had them read it on Seesaw to their family. And today, just to kind of wrap up the unit entirely, today and tomorrow, we're gonna use all we've learned about how-to writing to write our very own how-to text. So they walked through the writing process with me. We did all this together. And I'll show you their books in a moment. But today I picked the topic for them. We're just gonna do how to make a pizza, and they're gonna pick any type of pizza they would like with their favorite toppings. And then they are going to walk through the process of planning it out. They're gonna do their writing, they're going to do their editing, and then they can publish it on their own. So they're gonna try to kind of walk through this process on their own over the next 2 days. Here's just a quick example of some of the how-to books we published yesterday. We have how to wash dishes, and we worked on labeling, so head, soap, leg. We did talk about labeling, only the important parts, but that's okay. How to ask a friend to play with you, how to play tug of war with a puppy, and how to score a goal. And then within these, they had some steps here. So let me see if I can show you this one. This would be an advanced writer for first grade. I'm sure many of you will see that and know. But this student was able to come up with their idea. They split it into steps, and then we worked on adding sensory details in this unit. So first, find a toy that's good for tugging on. It looks like something long and has 2 handles. So, and then we also talked about labeling. So her first step was just first find a toy that's good for tugging on, and then she kind of left it blank, and then we talked about what sensory details are, what might our reader need to know. So for hers, she was like, oh, what should the toy look like? I really need to give the reader more information. And then next, give your puppy a side and start tugging. Oh, give them a side of the toy. Don't tug too hard, otherwise one of your puppy's teeth might get lost. So again, giving some information about how hard you need to pull on it. And then last, your puppy will start tugging and you are done. So cute. So I really love these. And like I said, they got a chance to read them yesterday to their families on Seesaw, and today they will take them home. And then last but not least, we are diving into science for the past couple weeks. We're talking about living versus non-living. So we've been doing some Generation Genius videos. We did one where we talked about what living and non-living was, and then we went outside and we did a hunt with a partner. They had to find 3 things that are living, 3 things that are not living, and we came back in and talked about it. We're also doing parts of a plant, and over here on the windowsill, which I'll show you in a moment, we did the celery activity yesterday that I'll show you. Today we're going to label parts of a plant, more of a paper-based activity. And then tomorrow we're gonna plant our own grass seed. So here is where we have everything. This one we put water and some food coloring with a stalk of celery. And so students are gonna come in today and already see how the stem brought all of the water up and into the leaves to give it nutrients, and it changed the color. Like I said, tomorrow we're going to each get our own cups and plant some grass seed. One of the other first grade teachers did this last year, so what we're gonna do is print out the kids' faces and we're gonna put it here, and then when the grass seed grows, it looks like they have long crazy hair, which will be a lot of fun for them. They'll love that. So yeah, that is what we're up to. You know what, I was gonna pop in a couple days this week, but I think I gave you a big overview today, and I talked a lot about the literacy meeting, so I might actually end this vlog in just one day. If you have any questions about anything we are doing over the next coming weeks, I will definitely be popping in every week to kind of share what we're doing when we start subtraction with regrouping and all that. Those will be some hard and fun lessons. And then I'll talk about what we're doing for poetry next week. So yeah, I think I'll end it here. Pop in next week with some of the new stuff. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions, drop them below in the comments. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.